It's my pleasure to introduce Laila Al-Arian, the executive producer of Fault Lines. As Patty said, it's a long-running show on Al Jazeera and the recipient of at least 5 OPC awards, I think, over the years. Fault Lines tackles investigations on everything from the black market industry in shark fins to Elon Musk. But in the last year and a half, they've really set the bar with their films on Gaza. This is the first of 4 films made in collaboration with filmmakers from Mediatown, which is an independent production company operating inside Gaza. And we're really lucky to have the founder of Mediatown, Ashraf Mashharawi, here with us today, calling in from Istanbul. Ashraf is responsible for founding Mediatown in 2008. He wanted to create a talent pool inside Gaza that could match the highest standards in the industry. He has incredible stories about how he's done that over the years. And he manages multiple international collaborations and dozens of team members on the ground, cinematographers, producers, sound recordists, graphic designers, that are now working in Gaza really under what are the harshest conditions imaginable. Also today, we're joined by Kavitha Chekuru, who is the director and producer of The Night Won't End. Kavitha is an independent journalist working out in New York, based in New York, who's done extensive work in Latin America as well as other parts of the world. I think one of the most challenging shoots I ever went on was actually a shoot with Kavitha deep into the jungles of Colombia. She's intrepid and no detail escapes her, so I'm really happy to have her. And then finally, the correspondent for this film was Sharif Abdul Kudus, am I saying his name right? He's not with us today, but he's continued to do some incredible reporting for Dropsite News on Gaza, and I encourage everyone to check out his work there. So I wanted to just take a minute to situate us in time. This film was released in June 2024, almost a year ago now. We're now 20 months into the war. More than 50,000 people have been killed, including more than 17,000 children. I came across a detail from a Brown study recently that more journalists have been killed in Gaza since October 7th than the US Civil War, World Wars I and II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the war in Yugoslavia, and post 9/11 war in Afghanistan combined. So the impact is really just nothing like we've seen before. When you made this film, it didn't seem like it could get any worse. It's gotten worse than any of us could have ever imagined. And I want to just point out that, foreign journalists have still not been allowed access to Gaza. And there are many problems with this fact, but I think what your film makes clear is that these problems are not, don't have to do with a lack of talent on the ground. And what Palestinian journalists in Gaza have done is beyond humbling. So I just want to sort of situate us in time of when this film came out. It was June. You started the investigation in January 2024. It came out in June. And if you could take us back, Kavitha and Laila, to that time when you were deciding what to do, just kind of walk us through how you started to narrow in on what you were going to do with this film.
Well, Layla and I started talking about doing something on the war, honestly, within the first, I'm going to say 10 days to 2 weeks, in October 2023. And I think, honestly, naively, we thought that we didn't think it would be going on, certainly to this point, but I don't think we thought it would be going on past a few months even. Again, that was very naive of us, I suppose. But when we started talking about how we were going to do it, with fault lines, obviously the kind of remit of it is to look at the role of the U.S. In the world. Obviously, that's very clear here. But we didn't want to make it just like a political film or just about the Biden administration. We were seeing a lot of reporting about what was going on with the Biden administration and their response. And we were seeing all the horrific images coming out of Gaza. What we wanted to do was show how these two were connected and how the Biden response was completely, the responsibility they had for these attacks. And so what we wanted to do was, as we kind of kept seeing the war progress, was figure out, we were seeing certain essentially patterns of civilian harm. So the massive airstrikes, within the first month or so, we were starting to see the attacks on quote unquote safe zones. And by December, we were already, to be honest, actually, I think it was as early as mid-November, there were allegations of arbitrary executions and white flag killings. And so we wanted to focus on one of those. And as we went on, the attack on Hind Rajab and the two Red Crescent paramedics happened. And while that got a lot of media attention, the reason we wanted to focus on it was because it really highlighted the the kind of the Biden administration or the broader U.S. government's response to what happens when there's an attack on civilians, and they defer to Israeli military investigations.
Was Hind's story the first one that you identified, that you were like, okay, this is definitely going to be in the film?
No, Laila can probably speak to that.
Yeah, no, that came later. As Kavitha mentioned, we started talking about which cases and which stories to cover, and Hind was killed January 29th, 2024. So by then we had already actually selected some of the main cases we were going to work on. But it was very clear, as Kavitha mentioned, that we needed to anchor this film in what was happening on the ground in Gaza, and that we needed filmmakers and journalists in Gaza to work with. And I was actually visiting Doha around that time that Kavitha and I first started speaking. And I spoke with one of my colleagues and I said, we need to work with filmmakers out of Gaza. Who do you recommend? And she said Ashraf's name. And I was like, okay, well, in case he's unavailable, like who? And she's like, no, that's the person that you need to work with. She's like, he's the best. So it was no question in our minds, just he came very highly recommended as the best, the most experienced. And actually, it was when we spoke with Ashraf, that first conversation, it was really funny. Actually, with Ashraf and I later realized we were both in DC. We were on the phone and we didn't realize both of us were like probably not far apart from each other. But he was the one at the time who said, we kind of laid out what we were looking for in terms of, as Kavitha mentioned, what are the flashpoints of violence? How are people being killed? And of course, we could easily see that there were these airstrikes. And he had suggested, why don't we look at the Salem family? Because it was one family that had experienced this horrifying airstrike that killed 100 members of the same family, 50 children. And within a week, a little over a week, they had experienced this horrifying execution in which the husband of Hiba Salem, the father of these kids who we filmed with, was killed in front of his family, along with 10 other men. So, as he was thinking like a filmmaker, like a storyteller, how do we show the horrors of what's happening in Gaza through the experience of one family? And then, Kavitha had suggested the Ghaf family because there was this viral video of the father kissing his toddler's feet after he left to get him biscuits and came back. And then, of course, Hind's family, Hind's story was so well known.
I want to get further into the stories you did follow in the investigations. But first, Ashraf, can you describe the Mediatown footprint on the ground? Who you have working for you, what they do, and also how they've had to adapt, all the ways, some of the ways they've had to adapt since the war started.
Thank you very much. Actually, it is not first time. It is not first war we cover. We started actually from second Intifada. We covered the siege, and then the first war, 2008, 2009, 2014, 2012, 14, until this war came. So we have a rich experience how to deal with this situation, because it is not the first war. All the time we were under attack and heavy attack. Maybe this is the worst one, because it was like a very slow genocide. We couldn't feel it at that time, but this time from everywhere experience and how to deal with the coming challenges. And by that time, we gain a very rich experience. And our crew operated in another conflict zones. For example, the same crew went to Yemen to cover the many issues in Yemen, to Syria, to Ukraine, to Africa, several countries of Africa. So the same Gazan crews from Media Town have a rich experience inside and outside Gaza, so that enrich their experience and give them the skill how to deal with the difficulties and challenges in the best way. So we have a very rich experience. But actually, the last experience in after the 7th of October, it was different because it is the first time we lost these big numbers and of people, and the mass killing escalated, and the genocide it is happening on a wide scale, and the children is a target. We witnessed the number of children. It is unbelievable. Yani, it is just increasing in a very crazy numbers. The women, the elderly people. So the infrastructure, they are wiping everything, the looting. It is like dealing with gangs, not like with the state, and that's very crazy. And you can't anticipate what's happening next. The journalists, the number of journalists who get killed, the doctors, the nurses. We lost a lot of people, and each one of the members of the crews lost many of his beloved people, including me. So we are dealing with a different stage of escalating and aggressive and attacks. And beside killing, we have hunger. People can't find something to eat. Imagine you are filming and you can't find something to kill the pain of hunger of your stomach. So it is not easy experience. And maybe talking about it much easier than experiencing this hunger. Hunger is really very painful, very painful, because my crew told me that it is like something burning your stomach, burning you from inside. You can't think very well. Your everything in your body pain you. So it is very painful experience. And we have no proper transportation. They need sometimes to walk many kilometers to holding their equipments, and that's very dangerous because unfortunately we have drones with artificial intelligence that maybe recognize you as a fighter because your equipments, and we have many sad incidents that people killed but because of this stupid technology that should be used for good things, they are using against civilians in a very ugly way. So the challenges, it is like endless in Gaza. But we know that we are the only voice for the people abroad, and we are the only voice for our people, for the victims. So if we stopped and we stopped to challenge ourselves and challenge this very unbelievable situation, and this non-human situation, I think the world will not know about what's happening in Gaza, and the crimes will be covered, and the criminals will be happy because they can kill more, and nobody here, nobody move. So it is like a responsibility on that we bear to continue and cover and tell the world what's happening. There's no choice. We have just one choice, just to continue. We have no options.